I always thought I was a man of reason, someone who could read people, see through deception, and trust only those who deserved it. I wasn't a genius, not some millionaire with a perfect life, but I believed I had one thing figured out: loyalty. I worked hard, paid the bills, stayed faithful, and never let my wife go a single night without knowing she was loved. Turns out I was a fool. 12 years. 12 years of marriage, of sacrifices, of believing that we were in this together. That no matter how hard life got, no matter how exhausted I was from working overtime just to keep food on our table, she was my home, my safe place. But I was just a stepping stone in her life, a background character in a story she wrote for herself. I don't know exactly when it started. Maybe it was months ago. Maybe it was years. Maybe it was there all along, and I was just too blind, too naive, too desperate to believe in something that was never real. But the signs? Oh, they were there. I just convinced myself they weren't. Late nights at work that didn't make sense. The sudden need for privacy, the turned-down screen whenever I walked into the room. The dismissive attitude, the way she used to smile at me but now barely even looked my way. But the worst part? The indifference. The way she stopped caring about me, about us, as if I had become just another chore, something she had outgrown but didn't have the decency to let go of. And I was the idiot who kept fighting. I remember nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that everything was fine, that she was just stressed, that I was imagining things, that the exhaustion in her voice had nothing to do with another man. I told myself love was about trust, about believing in the person you gave your life to. But love is also about respect. And respect was the first thing she threw away when she decided to betray me. The night I finally saw the truth with my own eyes, I wasn't supposed to be home early. Fate had a cruel way of working, and for once, my shift at work ended sooner than expected. I remember walking through that front door, holding a bag of takeout, thinking about how I'd surprise her, how I'd finally ask her what was wrong, how we'd talk things out like we used to. But what I found, what I saw shattered me in a way I never thought possible. And in that moment, everything inside me broke. I stood there, frozen. My mind refused to process what my eyes were seeing. My wife, the woman I had sacrificed so much for, was in our bed with another man. The room was dimly lit, the glow from the bedside lamp casting long shadows on the walls. Her laughter, once my favorite sound in the world, now sliced through me like a blade. I wanted to move. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to tear that man apart, but my body wouldn't listen. My legs were heavy, my arms numb, my breath caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. How long had this been going on? How many times had she done this while I was out breaking my back at work, trying to make a life for us? My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. Betrayal has a way of suffocating you. It wraps itself around your lungs, squeezes your ribs, and turns every beat of your heart into a reminder of how blind you were. Then, without thinking, my phone slipped from my hand. The sharp crack of it hitting the wooden floor shattered the illusion. Lena's head snapped toward me. Her body stiffened, her face drained of color, and for the first time in a long time, she actually looked scared. "James?" she stammered, scrambling to cover herself, to reach for the blanket as if that could undo what had already been done. The man, some stranger, turned, his expression shifting from shock to arrogance in a split second. He didn't move to cover himself. He didn't flinch. He just smirked, as if this was some joke, as if I was nothing but an inconvenience in his night. That smirk broke something inside me. I turned and walked out, not because I was weak, not because I was a coward, but because if I had stayed another second longer, I don't know what I would have done. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to be anywhere but there. The night was cold, the streets almost empty. I got in my car, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My whole body trembled, not from the cold, but from rage, heartbreak, disbelief. The streetlights blurred past as I drove, no destination in mind, only the need to escape the reality that had just been forced upon me. Everything we had built, every moment, every memory, Every night spent dreaming of a future together was a lie, and I was the last one to know. The thoughts came fast, relentless. How long had she been doing this? Was this the first time? No, it couldn't be. The distance, the coldness, the sudden nights out, the fake smiles she threw my way when I asked if something was wrong. It had all been there, staring me in the face. I was just too blind, too trusting, too much of a damn fool to see it. I had given her everything, and in return, she had treated me like I was nothing. My entire life had just collapsed in the space of seconds, and all I could think about was one thing. She was going to regret this. I don't remember how long I drove that night. Could have been hours or maybe just minutes that stretched into eternity. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, jaw clenched so tightly I thought my teeth might crack. I felt like a ghost, drifting through a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The city lights blurred past me, neon signs flashing through my windshield, but I wasn't really seeing any of it. My mind was stuck, replaying that moment over and over again. The image of her, tangled in bed with that stranger. The way she gasped when she saw me, the smirk on his face. I should have done something, should have screamed, should have punched the guy, should have made her feel even a fraction of the pain she just carved into my chest. But I didn't. I just walked away, like a coward. The more I thought about it, the more it ate me alive. How stupid was I? How blind? All those late nights at work, the times she told me she was out with her friends, the way she suddenly became so protective of her phone, like it was her lifeline. It was all there, right in front of me. I was the fool who refused to see it. I pulled into an empty parking lot outside a rundown gas station. The neon, open 24/7, flickered like it was barely holding on. Just like me, I let my forehead drop against the steering wheel, gripping my hair, forcing back the suffocating rage twisting in my gut. A man shouldn't cry over a woman who betrays him. That's what they say, right? But sitting there, alone in my car, with my world crashing down around me, I felt the burn behind my eyes. Everything I had built, everything I had believed in had just turned to ash. I was exhausted, not just from the night, but from years of trying, of sacrificing, of giving everything to a woman who saw me as disposable. I used to think I was strong, that I could handle anything life threw at me. But this was different. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, fingers shaking. A part of me wanted to call someone, anyone, just to hear a voice that wasn't my own thoughts screaming at me. But who was there to call? Lena had been my world, and now that world was gone. I stared at the screen, the reflection of my face staring back at me. Tired, broken, lost. Then the screen lit up. A message from her. I almost didn't open it, but something inside me, some sick, self-destructive part of me, needed to see what she had to say. Lena, James, please come home. We need to talk. It's not what you think. Not what I think. I almost laughed. The sound came out hollow, bitter. Not what I think. I saw it. I saw her. I saw him. I saw everything. And yet, even after all of it, she still had the nerve to lie. I let the phone fall into the passenger seat. I wasn't going home. Not yet. Not until I figured out what the hell I was going to do next. And one thing was certain. She wasn't going to walk away from this without consequences. The night felt endless. Sitting in my car, staring at the dull glow of my phone screen, I wondered how I had let my life turn into this mess. I was exhausted, hollowed out, but the weight of betrayal sat heavy on my chest, making sleep impossible. Eventually, the sun began to rise, casting an eerie light over the empty parking lot. I didn't know how long I had been sitting there, but the moment the sky shifted from dark to gray, reality hit me like a freight train. I couldn't stay here forever. I had two choices: return home and face the wreckage of my marriage, or disappear into the city and pretend none of it had ever happened. But I wasn't a coward. Not anymore. My body felt stiff as I climbed out of the car. The air was cold, biting at my skin, but I welcomed it. It reminded me that I was still alive, still breathing, even if my heart felt like it had been ripped out. I drove back, each mile heavier than the last. The house, the one I had worked so hard to build a life in, looked the same from the outside. A quiet, unsuspecting place. But I knew what was waiting for me inside. A battlefield. I took a deep breath before stepping in. The moment I opened the door, I saw her. Lena was sitting on the couch, still wearing the dress from the night before, her hair messy, eyes swollen from crying. She looked up at me, and for a second, I thought I saw relief flash across her face, like she thought I had come back to forgive her. "James, please." Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. I didn't answer. I just walked past her, heading straight for the kitchen. I needed coffee, something to keep me grounded, because if I didn't, I might do something I'd regret. She followed, hovering in the doorway. "We need to talk." I let out a bitter laugh, pouring my coffee with shaky hands. "Talk? Now you want to talk?" I swear, it wasn't what it looked like. My grip tightened around the mug. The audacity, the absolute nerve. I turned to her slowly, meeting her bloodshot eyes with a look so cold it made her flinch. "So, you weren't in our bed with another man?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Caught. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "Jesus, Lena." It was a mistake. A mistake. That word again. As if cheating was like tripping on the sidewalk, something that just happened without intent. I laughed again, but this time it felt more like choking. "How long?" She hesitated. "James, How long?" She swallowed, looking away. That was all the answer I needed. I leaned against the counter, exhaustion sinking into my bones. Was it just him? Silence. The room was so quiet I could hear the faint ticking of the wall clock, the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. "Lena." She let out a shaky breath. "No." My chest tightened, a dull ache spreading through my ribs. She didn't just betray me, she made a habit of it. Clenched my jaw. Last night, I thought about how blind I was, how stupid I must have been to not see it. I let out a humorless chuckle. But now I realize, you didn't even try to hide it. Tears streamed down her face. "James, please. I love you." Something inside me snapped. "You don't get to say that," I growled, slamming the mug onto the counter so hard I thought it might crack. "You don't get to love someone and do this to them." She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. But I felt nothing. No sympathy, no anger. Just a cold, empty void where my heart used to be. I wiped a hand down my face. "You should leave." Her head snapped up, panic in her eyes. "What? No, James, we can fix this. I made a mistake." "A mistake that lasted how long?" I snapped. "A few weeks? A few months? Years?" She didn't answer. I exhaled sharply. That's what I thought. I turned away, unable to look at her anymore. "Pack your things. Be gone by tonight." She let out a choked sob. "You can't just throw me out like this." I turned back, my expression unreadable. "Watch me." And with that, I walked upstairs, leaving her to drown in her own guilt. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring blankly at the floor. The room felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in, filled with the ghost of memories I didn't want to relive. The photos on the nightstand, the scent of her perfume still lingering on the pillows. Everything felt like a cruel joke. I had spent years building this life with Lena, sacrificing my own happiness for the sake of stability, for the sake of what I thought was love. And now I was just a man sitting in the wreckage of a life that had been nothing but a carefully constructed lie. How many times had she brought them here? The thought made my stomach turn. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe, but every inhale burned like acid in my lungs. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was physical. She had desecrated our home. I could still hear her downstairs, rustling through drawers, probably trying to figure out what to take, what excuses to make. But I didn't care. Not anymore. She had made her choice. A knock at the door pulled me out of my spiral. I already knew who it was. I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face before standing up and opening it. Lena stood there, her eyes red and swollen. clutching the strap of her purse like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "James, please, can we at least talk?" I scoffed. "We already talked." "No, you talked. You told me to leave." Her voice broke, but I had no sympathy left for her. "I don't have anywhere to go." I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Not my problem. James, save it." My voice was cold, detached. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of the emptiness she had left me with. "You made your bed. Now go lie in it." She sniffled, looking at me with those damn eyes. The same ones that had once held love, or at least what I thought was love. Now all I saw was regret. And not even the regret of hurting me, the regret of getting caught. "You won't even listen?" she whispered. I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, I've listened. I listened to every lie you told me. Every excuse. Every, 'I love you,' that apparently meant nothing. I think I've listened enough for one lifetime." Her lip quivered, but I didn't flinch. Couldn't. "Where will you go?" I finally asked, my voice void of any real concern. She hesitated, and for the first time I realized she really hadn't thought this through. She had been so comfortable in her deception, so sure she could keep her double life going, that she never prepared for the moment it would all come crashing down. "Well," I said, pushing past her and heading downstairs, "that's not my problem." She followed me, desperation creeping into her voice. "James, I was scared. I made mistakes, but it doesn't mean I didn't love you." That was it, the final straw. I turned on my heel so fast she almost bumped into me. Don't stand there and tell me you loved me while you were screwing other men in our bed." Her face crumpled. I was lonely. I let out a slow, shaky breath, gripping the edge of the couch for support. "I was lonely, Lena. I was the one who worked myself into exhaustion to keep a roof over our heads. I was the one who stayed up at night, wondering why you were always working late. I was the one who felt like a ghost in my own damn marriage." Her tears fell freely now, but I was done. I wanted a partner, a wife, someone who would stand beside me when things got hard, not someone who would run the moment life got a little uncomfortable. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. "No, I don't want to hear it." Silence stretched between us. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to find a way to salvage this, to manipulate her way back in. But there was nothing left to salvage. I walked to the front door, unlocking it. "You have until tonight. Be gone before I get back." She stared at me, as if hoping for one last sign of weakness, one last chance. She wouldn't get it. With a heavy heart, I stepped out, slamming the door behind me. This wasn't the end, but it was the beginning of something else. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the lies, the sheer absurdity of it all, pressed down on me like an anvil on my chest. I felt like a fool, like an idiot who had spent years of his life believing in something that was never real. The night was quiet, too quiet. The only sound was the rhythmic ticking of the engine cooling down, mirroring the slow but inevitable eruption building inside me. I had driven for hours with no real destination, just an overwhelming need to get away. I should have been angry, furious, even, but all I felt was empty, like some vital part of me had been carved out and replaced with an unbearable hollowness. How could she do this to me? After everything? After years of late nights? After the stress of making sure we had food on the table? After every sacrifice I made just to keep our heads above water? I had worked my ass off for her, and yet I was the one left with nothing. A part of me wanted to go back, to scream at her, to demand answers. But what good would it do? Would it change anything? No. The truth was, Lena didn't care. Not really. She only cared about herself, about what she wanted, about the thrill of sneaking around behind my back. She would never feel the same kind of gut-wrenching pain that had torn me apart. And that was when I realized this wasn't just heartbreak. This was war. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The road ahead was dark, stretching into the unknown. But I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't be the one left broken. I wouldn't be another pathetic man who gets stepped on and forgotten. If she thought she could walk away from this without consequences, she was dead wrong. I pulled my phone from my pocket, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through my contacts. There was only one person I could call right now, someone who knew me better than I knew myself, someone who would see the situation for what it was and tell me exactly what I needed to hear. I hit dial. The phone rang once, twice, then, "James?" A groggy voice answered. "Man, do you have any idea what time it is?" "Alex," I said, my voice raw. She cheated on me. Silence. Then a deep sigh. "Where are you?" "Nowhere. Everywhere. I don't know, I just started driving." "Stay where you are," he said. "I'm coming to get you." I wanted to argue, to tell him I was fine, that I didn't need saving. But the truth was, I did. I needed someone to remind me that I wasn't alone. 15 minutes later, Alex pulled up beside me in his old Chevy. He took one look at me and let out a low whistle.
Jesus, man.
"You look like hell." I let out a humorless laugh. "Feels worse." He didn't say anything, just reached into the back seat and tossed me a flask. I hesitated, then took a slow sip. The whiskey burned all the way down, but it was a different kind of pain, one I could handle. "Tell me everything," Alex said, leaning back against his car. And so I did. I told him about the late nights, the whispers, the way she used to look at me like I was the only man in the world, only to replace me like I was nothing. By the time I was done, Alex let out a long breath and shook his head. "You know what you need to do, right?" he said. I looked at him, my mind still clouded with pain. "What?" "You need to make her regret every single thing she did to you." His words settled over me like a cold wind, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something close to clarity. He was right. I had been the good guy for too long, the loyal husband, the dependable provider, the man who put his wife first, even when it meant sacrificing his own happiness. And look where that got me. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. Lena had made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine, and I was going to destroy her. I barely slept that night. The whiskey dulled the pain for a little while, but it didn't erase the thoughts racing through my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lena's face, the way she used to smile at me, the way she whispered she loved me. And then I saw her with him, in our bed, in my house. Rage bubbled up inside me, but this time, it wasn't the kind of anger that made you punch walls or scream into the void. No, this was colder, sharper, calculated. By the time the sun crept over the horizon, I had made my decision. Lena wasn't going to walk away from this unscathed. She had taken years of my life and thrown them away like garbage. She had taken my trust, my love, my dedication, and turned it into some joke behind my back. Well, if she thought she could just move on, she had another thing coming. The first step, finding the cracks. I sat in my kitchen, my laptop open in front of me, fingers hovering over the keyboard. If I was going to do this, I needed information. Lena had been sloppy. I had ignored the signs before, but now they were all I could see. The late nights, the fake excuses, the girls' nights out that never seemed to have any photos or proof. I opened our shared bank account statements first. I hadn't paid much attention before. I was too busy trying to keep us afloat financially, but now every little detail mattered. And there it was. Hotel charges. Multiple. Some cheap, some expensive. Dinner receipts from places I'd never been with her. Designer gifts that had never made their way into our home. She hadn't just been unfaithful. She had been living an entirely different life behind my back. A burning sensation settled in my chest. How long? How many times had she kissed me goodbye, only to run straight into the arms of another man? I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. Emotions wouldn't help me now. The second step, gathering evidence. I scrolled through her social media next. She wasn't stupid. She never posted anything incriminating. But her friends did. One tagged photo caught my eye. Lena at a party, sitting just a little too close to some guy in a suit. She looked happy, relaxed. I had never seen that version of her in years. A deep bitterness settled in my stomach. I saved the picture, then kept scrolling. I checked our phone bill records next. Lena and I were on a shared plan, which meant I could see every incoming and outgoing call she made. One number stood out. Repeated calls. Late at night. Early in the morning. Bingo. I copied it and plugged it into a reverse phone lookup website. A few seconds later, the result popped up. Nathan Rhodes. I didn't know who he was, but I was damn sure going to find out. The third step. Making the first move. I sat back in my chair, my mind buzzing. The pieces were starting to come together, but I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. I wasn't going to be one of those guys who confronted his cheating wife and got fed some half-baked excuses about how it didn't mean anything, or it was a mistake. No, when I confronted Lena, it would be on my terms. And by the time I was done, she would wish she had never met me. I grabbed my phone and dialed Alex. He picked up on the second ring. "Tell me you didn't do something stupid," he said immediately. "Not yet," I replied, my voice steady. "But I need your help." There was a pause, then a resigned sigh. "All right, what's the plan?" A slow, dark smile curled on my lips. "Oh, you'll see." I spent the next few days moving through life like a ghost. Work became a blur, conversations felt meaningless, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Lena, laughing with that stranger, her body language so easy, so relaxed, so intimate. It wasn't just physical. She had given him the version of herself that was supposed to be mine. But I wasn't going to let myself sink into self-pity. Not yet, because now I had a mission. Lena had spent months, maybe years, carefully constructing her double life. She had hidden it well enough to fool me, but not anymore. And if I was going to make her regret every moment of her betrayal, I needed to know everything. The truth unfolds. I sat at my desk late into the night, a notebook filled with scribbled details spread out before me. Every time I found something new, a hotel reservation, an expensive dinner, a name I didn't recognize, I wrote it down. Nathan Rhodes, the man I had caught her with. At first, I thought he was just some random fling. I was wrong. After running his number through every database I could find, I learned that Nathan wasn't just some guy. He was her coworker, a married man, with 2 kids. Perfect. A new kind of anger surged through me, cold, calculating, patient. If Lena thought she could just destroy our marriage and walk away without consequences, she was in for a rude awakening. And Nathan? Well, he had a whole family who deserved to know exactly what kind of man he was. Playing the long game, I knew I couldn't just barge into their world and expose them. Not yet. That would be too easy. Too fast. No, if I was going to do this, it had to be slow, methodical. So I started gathering evidence. The texts, screenshotted. The hotel bookings, saved. The phone call records, logged. I even created a fake social media account and started following Lena's colleagues, subtly inserting myself into conversations, fishing for more information. And the things I learned, disgusting. Lena had been playing me for a fool for over a year. She had used our money, my money, to fund their little getaways. She had spent nights telling me she was working late, while she was wrapped up in another man's arms. And worst of all, she wasn't even sorry. I saw the way she acted around me, the fake smiles, the empty kisses, the way she barely even looked me in the eyes anymore. She thought I was too weak to do anything about it. Well, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. The first crack. My first move was small, subtle. I left a single and signed note in Nathan's office. "Does your wife know where you really were last weekend?" Nothing more.
No threats. No accusations.
Just a little seed of doubt. It didn't take long for the cracks to form. I kept an eye on Lena's behavior. The first day, nothing changed. But on the second day, she was tense, nervous, checking her phone more often. By the third day, I overheard her on the phone, her voice sharp and panicked. "What do you mean you got a note? Are you sure it wasn't just some mistake?" "Mistake? Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea." Preparing for the big reveal. Now that I knew they were on edge, it was time for the next step. I wasn't just going to ruin her life. I was going to let her ruin it herself. So I waited, and soon enough, Lena gave me exactly what I needed, because cheaters, they always slip up, and when she did, I'd be ready. I sat in my car outside Lena's office, watching as she walked inside with the same fake confidence she had worn for years. She had no idea that her carefully built world was about to collapse. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was orchestrating her downfall. The note to Nathan was only the first step, a small crack in their perfect little fantasy. But now, it was time to make those cracks turn into an earthquake, planting the seeds of chaos. The first thing I did was leak the truth, piece by piece. I sent an anonymous message to Nathan's wife. Nothing too detailed, just enough to stir suspicion. I thought you deserved to know where your husband really spends his late nights. Then, I made sure Lena's boss received an envelope filled with screenshots of her text messages and expense reports. Cheating on your husband is one thing. Using company money for your secret dates? That's career suicide. And finally, I set the trap. I made an anonymous social media account and started posting vague hints about a workplace affair, tagging just the right people. Colleagues, mutual friends, people who thrived on gossip. It didn't take long for whispers to turn into rumors. And rumors? They spread like wildfire, the first signs of panic. By the end of the week, I could tell that Lena was starting to crack. She was more distant than usual, constantly checking her phone, her face pale whenever she read a message. I overheard a call between her and Nathan while she thought I was asleep. Someone knows Nathan. Someone's trying to ruin us. Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea how right you are. I watched as she started deleting messages, erasing evidence, lying to people around her. But it was too late. The damage was already done. Nathan's world collapses first. It happened on a Friday afternoon. Nathan's wife didn't just suspect anymore. She knew. She stormed into his office and confronted him in front of everyone, screaming, crying, throwing his phone on the ground, exposing his texts with Lena. Nathan tried to calm her down, but it was too late. The entire office was watching. I heard later that he was put on suspension while HR conducted an internal investigation, which in corporate language means he was already done. And Lena? She had no idea that she was next. The moment it all fell apart. By Sunday, the panic in her eyes was unmistakable. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through my phone, while she paced the living room. Then her phone rang. She answered it so fast it nearly fell from her hands. Hello. Pause. Her face drained of color. Wait, what? No, that's not possible. You don't understand. Another pause. Longer this time. And then tears. Big, dramatic, overwhelming sobs as she collapsed onto the couch, her head in her hands. I took a slow sip of my coffee. It was working. Her job was on the line. Her affair was no longer a secret. Her perfect little life was crumbling. And I wasn't done yet, because next, she was going to lose everything. Lena sat on the couch, staring at her phone like it was a loaded gun pointed at her head. She was unraveling. I could see it in the way her hands trembled, in the shallow rise and fall of her breath. This can't be happening, she whispered, but it was. Her entire world, the one she built on lies, deceit, and selfishness, was collapsing around her. The consequences catch up. Nathan was already ruined. His wife had kicked him out of their home, his career was in free fall, and his reputation was permanently stained. But Lena, she still had something left to lose, and I was going to take every last bit of it. Her phone buzzed again. She flinched like the sound physically hurt her. Lena, we need to talk. Call me back now. It was her boss, the one who had received those damning screenshots. The walls were closing in, and she knew it. Desperate attempts to salvage her life. She turned to me, her eyes red and puffy from crying. James, please, I need you to believe me. This is all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I let out a dry, humorless laugh. That was the best she could come up with? A misunderstanding is when you forget to buy milk at the store. Lena, sleeping with another man, multiple men, is a choice. She sobbed harder, not out of guilt, but out of fear. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was sorry she got caught. The final blow to her career. The next morning, her world shattered completely. She walked into work, trying to act normal, but the whispers followed her like shadows. By noon, she was called into HR. By 1 p.m., she was packing up her desk. By 2 p.m., she was officially unemployed. I watched her walk through the front door that evening, her face hollow, her spirit broken. "I lost my job," she choked out. I took a sip of my coffee, feigning concern. "That's rough." She had no idea I was behind it, but she was about to find out. The final confrontation. That night, I waited until she was emotionally drained, until she was too weak to fight back. Then I struck. "Lena," I said calmly, sitting across from her at the dinner table. She looked up, eyes wary. She knew something was coming. "I know everything. About you, about Nathan, about the others." She gasped, but I didn't stop. "I know how long it's been going on. I know about the money you stole. I know that while I was working my ass off to support us, you were out playing house with other men." Her face crumpled, but I felt nothing. "And the best part?" I leaned forward, voice dripping with satisfaction. "Everyone else knows now, too." Lena shattered in front of me. Her career, gone. Her reputation, destroyed. Her future, ruined. And me, I was finally free. Lena sat at the dining table, a lifeless shell of the woman I once thought I loved. Her eyes were sunken, her shoulders slumped, her confidence shattered beyond repair. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. But peace didn't pay the bills. And despite everything, I still had to figure out my own future, drowning in self-pity. After her firing, Lena spent her days locked in our bedroom. She barely ate, barely spoke. The confident, manipulative woman who once juggled multiple affairs was now nothing more than a broken, humiliated wreck. And yet, I felt no sympathy, because while she was drowning in regret, I had already drowned in betrayal, and no one had thrown me a life vest. Late at night, I could hear her muffled cries through the walls. A younger, softer version of me might have felt bad, might have walked in and comforted her. But I wasn't that man anymore. I was the man she created, a man fueled by pain, vengeance, and the unshakable knowledge that I had wasted years on someone who never deserved me, trying to claw her way back. One evening, as I sat in the living room, scrolling through job listings, Lena finally emerged. Her hair was tangled, her clothes wrinkled. She looked like a woman on the verge of collapse. "James," she started, her voice fragile. I didn't respond. "Can we talk?" I let out a slow breath and set my phone down. Not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted to see what pathetic excuse she had prepared this time. She sat across from me, hands trembling. I messed up. I know that, and I can't take it back. But I need you, James. I need us. I tilted my head, pretending to be deep in thought. "Us," I repeated mockingly. "James, please. I can get another job. I can fix this. We can fix this. I just need a second chance." A second chance? Did she think this was a bad exam score? A mistake she could rewrite? No, this wasn't something that could be undone. A second chance? I scoffed, my voice cold. "Lena, you had years of chances. Years to be loyal, years to be honest. And instead, you chose to turn our marriage into a joke. You didn't just betray me. You made me feel like a fool in my own home." Her lip quivered. "I was stupid," she whispered. "Yes," I said, my tone sharp. "You were, but stupid wasn't the problem. Cruelty was." Her desperate last attempt. She must have realized then there was no saving this, because suddenly, her tears turned into rage. "You're just going to throw away everything?" she snapped, her voice rising. "After all we've been through?" I laughed, a genuine, deep laugh. "Everything?" I repeated, shaking my head. "You mean the years of lies? The nights you left me alone while you slept with another man? The money you stole from our accounts? That everything?" She clenched her fists, breathing heavily. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "No," I said, standing up. "You just didn't mean to get caught. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I grabbed my keys and walked past her, not bothering to look back. "Where are you going?" she demanded, voice desperate. "Somewhere you're not," I said simply. The power of walking away. For years, I had been the stable one, the responsible one, the man who put in the effort. And for years, she had made me feel small. But not anymore. As I stepped outside, taking in the crisp night air, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just leaving the house for a drive. I was leaving her, for good. The moment I stepped outside, I felt it. A strange, unfamiliar sense of relief. Like I had finally cut off a weight that had been slowly crushing me for years. The air was cold, biting against my skin, but I barely noticed. My mind was too loud. The echoes of Lena's desperate pleas still rang in my ears. "Please, James, don't do this. We can fix this." Fix? How do you fix something that was never real to begin with? I gripped the steering wheel of my car, knuckles turning white. I should have felt worse. I should have felt something, but all I felt was emptiness, drowning in the past. I drove aimlessly for hours, the city lights blurring past me. Every street, every building, they all looked the same, felt the same, like I had been sleepwalking through life this whole time. I pulled into an empty parking lot near an old diner I used to visit when I was younger, back when life made sense. Inside, the place was quiet. The smell of stale coffee and greasy food filled the air. I sat in a corner booth, my head in my hands. The memories started flooding in. The way Lena used to look at me when we first got together, like I was her whole world. The late-night drives, the whispered, "I love you," the promises we made. Promises she had no intention of keeping. And me? I had been a fool. I gave her everything. My trust, my loyalty, my heart. And she treated it like a disposable toy she could toss aside when something shinier came along. I gritted my teeth, staring at the chipped ceramic coffee cup in front of me. How many nights had I stayed awake, worrying about bills, about our future, about making her happy? And how many nights had she been out, making a fool of me? The rage burned deep in my gut, a slow, smoldering fire that I wasn't ready to put out. The call that changed everything. I was about to leave when my phone buzzed. Lena. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. She had already called 5 times. Each time I ignored it. But this time, I wanted to hear it. I wanted to hear how pathetic she sounded. I picked up. Silence. Then a shaky breath. "James, are you coming home?" I almost laughed. Home? The place where I was humiliated? The place that reeked of betrayal? "No," I said, voice cold. "Please, just come back and talk to me." There was a desperation in her voice now. Not love, not regret, just fear. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing the life I built for her. The house, the stability, the money. I had been nothing more than a stepping stone for her selfish little fantasy. And now that fantasy was crumbling. "Go to sleep, Lena," I said, voice void of emotion. "This conversation is over." I hung up before she could say another word. And for the first time in years, I felt in control. A new kind of pain. Driving back, I didn't go home. I went to a cheap motel on the edge of town. The room was small, smelled like cigarettes, and the mattress was stiff. But it didn't matter. It was mine. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The loneliness was suffocating. I had spent years building a life around Lena, and now that she was gone, I realized I didn't even know who I was without her. That was the real tragedy. Not that she cheated, not that she betrayed me, but that I had lost myself along the way. But no more. This was the start of something new. A new James, a stronger James. And if Lena thought she had seen the worst of me, she had no idea what was coming.